What's up, guys? It's Analyst. We're back for year 2 on YouTube here. We're going to be going over every single team, every single matchup this week, going into week 1, who I want to start, who I want to sit, guys I'm avoiding, guys I'm cautious on. We're going to look at injuries and all that stuff. So, as per usual, we have the website here in which we can take a look at all these things. So, we're going to start with this Thursday game. We're just going to jump straight into it, right? So, Tampa Bay hosting Dallas. They're 8-point favorites, which is pretty big. 51-point total. Expected to be a high-scoring game. Now, from the Tampa side, Dallas's defense still needs a lot of work. That secondary, Trevon Diggs, he's definitely on the come-up, but overall, this is not a defense that I'm worried about. Micah Parsons, this is going to be his first regular season action. I think he has a chance of making some plays here. But for the most part, this is not a defense I'm concerned about. So for Tampa Bay, Tom Brady, easy start this week. I think he's a top 7, top 8 quarterback this week. Pretty easily, can make his way into the top 5. Running backs for Tampa Bay. Look, Giovanni Bernard had a high ankle sprain, but now he's practicing in full. So Giovanni Bernard's going to be in there. Leonard Fournette's going to be there. Ronald Jones is going to be in there. I just don't want to put any bets on this backfield. With week 1, we can kind of sit back and let this thing play out before we're forced to start any of these guys. So hopefully you guys aren't in a position where you have to start someone like Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette, or Giovanni Bernard. I am avoiding Leonard Fournette. I am avoiding Gio Bernard. Ronald Jones, obviously, as you can tell, he's got a pretty good game script ahead of him, but I do think this is still going to be a high caliber passing game. I think this is going to be a back and forth, ton of touchdowns. Going to be some mistakes from the Dallas side, which is what I think is going to bite them in the butt. But for the most part, I don't want to take a chance with these running backs if I don't have to for Tampa. So if you have to start Ronald Jones, okay, but if not, I would avoid it if you can. The wide receivers, look, if you drafted Mike Evans, if you drafted Chris Godwin, you drafted them in the 4th, 5th round, they're your starters. They're going to be starting this game. Antonio Brown, I think he's a great wide receiver 2/flex play. Apparently looks the best that he has since like 3 or 4 years ago, which is 2016, 2014, back in the days when he was the wide receiver 1 in the entire league. So if that really is true, I think Antonio Brown can be as high as a wide receiver 1. But for now, we're going to label him as a great flex / low end wide receiver 2. I do like Antonio Brown this week. Tight ends for Tampa Bay. Look, Gronk is there, but OJ Howard is back, right? Cameron Brate is healthy. I just don't know what this offense is going to look like. Hopefully you're not in a position where you drafted Gronk and you have to start him. If you are, I'm going to be extremely cautious because of OJ Howard coming back. But yeah, I would just try to stay away from these tight ends if possible. Back to Antonio Brown, though. I mean, I would label him as a top 20 wide receiver this week. So based on your options, he's probably going to be starting for most people. I just want to clarify that. Tampa Bay defense, are you comfortable starting them this week? I mean, that's a high point total. I do think there's going to be some mistakes from the Dallas side, especially because in that offensive line, they are missing Zach Martin, one of their key guards. He got COVID. He's going to be out this week. Dak coming off injury. He may not have the full mobility that he once had. So I do think they're going to let up a couple sacks. There might be some fumbles, maybe a pick or two there. I think Tampa Bay is passable this week. I wouldn't call them a top-tier defense, only because I think Dallas can still put up points, but Tampa Bay is definitely passable. In that same respect, can you trust Dak Prescott? I mean, look, if you drafted him, it was in the 5th, 6th round, and you're starting that guy. If you draft a quarterback that high, you are starting him. I think Dak can still produce given the fact that he has Amari Cooper, he has CeeDee Lamb, he has Michael Gallup, he's got Zeke. Really the only piece he's missing is Zach Martin, which is going to be a huge loss for them, but I think he can get through it and put up decent points. I wouldn't label him a top 5 quarterback this week. I'd probably, if I have Tom Brady and Dak, I feel more comfortable starting Tom Brady, but Dak is still a top 10 quarterback this week. Okay, running backs, look, Ezekiel Elliott, it was a great stat from my buddy Faraz at Upper Hand Fantasy. You guys are probably familiar with him. Zeke had 7.5 targets per game when Dak was healthy last year. So in a game where they're likely going to be playing from behind, if you're looking at this 8-point spread, Yeah, I mean, Zeke's definitely startable in PPR, standard, whatever. You drafted this guy in the first round. He is a week-to-week starter. And you guys are going to notice for the most part when I'm talking about a lot of these games over here, I'm not going to be mentioning guys that are must-starts, right? Like Zeke, I shouldn't have to talk about. Like if it's Christian McCaffrey, I'm not going to be like, oh, well, come on, you guys know. You know, I don't have to go over that. But yes, I do like Zeke this game, especially in PPR. Wide receivers, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, fresh off COVID. Michael Gallup is there too. I'm perfectly fine starting Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. I do like CeeDee Lamb a little better. Carlton Davis has been pretty good on the outside, but he's not necessarily a shutdown corner. They have some good safeties as well, but yeah, I'm comfortable with Amari Cooper. I like CeeDee Lamb a little more. Michael Gallup, look, he's a week-to-week boomer bust. This is going to be a high-scoring game. You know, if you want to take a shot on Gallup, if you're desperate for a flex, I understand. This isn't a matchup to me that screams Gallup is going to have a huge game. Tight ends, we still don't know what this tight end situation is. Avoid it. Dallas defense, why would you even consider it? Don't do that. The only reason to consider it is because of a guy like Micah Parsons, but this is not the week to test it out. Tom Brady, Super Bowl champ, the opening game at home, not the week to test it. Not the week at all. Okay, so we're going to go in order here. We're going to go to Washington hosting the Chargers. You're going to see a lot of these spreads, at least some of them should be a lot smaller, but week one's a great time if you guys want to put money on some of these spreads because nobody really knows exactly what these teams are going to look like. So, Washington at home. Ryan Fitzpatrick making his debut for the Washington football team. Would I consider him a streamer against this Chargers defense? Potentially. I mean, I don't think there's anything about this Chargers defense that scares me. Derwin James is back, and he's looked great. That secondary in terms of the cornerback, ever since Chris Harris left, they really haven't had anyone to fill that void. So they do have some holes at corner. They have that second-year linebacker, Kenneth Murray. They have some pieces on the defensive line as well, as far as Joey Bosa. So I'm not overly confident about Fitzpatrick. I don't think this is a matchup where I'm like, oh yeah, Fitzpatrick can do well in this game. It's a lower total for the most part, so I'm going to avoid Fitzpatrick here. I'm not going to consider him a streamer, but obviously it depends on what options you have. Running back wise, Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick. Gibson, again, you drafted this guy second round. Easy start each week. I'm not concerned about the Chargers' defensive line. I'm comfortable starting Antonio Gibson. J.D. McKissick, we still don't know what kind of a role he's going to have, if he does have a role, so I'm avoiding J.D. McKissick. Terry McLaurin, easy must start, right? Week to week. I don't think there's anyone in this Chargers secondary who really scares me off here, so Terry's an easy start. Curtis Samuel, currently dealing with a groin injury. He re-aggravated the groin injury that he had in the offseason. He's trending towards not playing in this game, which could bump up some opportunity for Deandre Brown, which I don't want to play him in his first start. Adam Humphries, who has played with Ryan Fitzpatrick before. Again, not a guy I want to trust in my starting lineup. I don't really consider either of those guys as flex options. This does boost the value of a guy like Logan Thomas just a little bit. I think Logan Thomas's value is pretty safe on a week-to-week basis. I'm a little higher on him than some other people are, but yeah, I have no problem with starting Logan Thomas in this matchup. Washington defense, are they playable this week? It's Justin Herbert. You have the reigning rookie second-year player who shattered records last year as a rookie. Do I feel comfortable playing them? Not really. Are they passable? I mean, this is an overall low point total. This Washington defense as a whole is absolutely insane. So, yeah, I do trust the Washington defense here. Oh, sorry, I didn't know my notifications were on. So they're a passable defense. If you're the type, this is not a if you have them, you need to find another option. This is okay, you can play them, but you don't expect a ton of points. On the flip side, the Chargers, Justin Herbert. Do I feel comfortable starting him against this Washington defense? It's going to be one of the best defenses in the NFL this year. He's going to have Chase Young breathing down his neck. He does have a substantially better offensive line, so that does help him a bunch. So Justin Herbert, definitely playable. Running backs, Austin Eckler, you drafted them at the end of the first, beginning of the second. You're starting this guy. Wide receivers, Keenan Allen, 100%. You're starting this guy. Who else? So Mike Williams, is he... I mean, look, like, he's someone who, as a whole, I'm okay with. But again, we don't know his role. And in this matchup, if this was like playing against Dallas, I'd be like, okay, Mike Williams might be worth a flex. If it was a higher point total, and maybe they had if they were in Dallas's position where they were lower on the spread and stuff like that. So I don't view Mike Williams as a sleeper, or I don't view him as like some sort of crazy flex play this week. So avoiding Mike Williams. Tight ends, Donald Parham, Jared Cook. Still don't know exactly what that tight end group is going to look like. I'm avoiding both of these guys. Although Washington was pretty bad against tight ends last year. Okay. Haven't done this in a while. I'm starting to lose my breath. I think that happened last year too. Atlanta at home hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. They're 3-point favorites here. Kyle Pitts making his regular season debut. No more Julio Jones. Matt Ryan thinks this is a great start for him. The spread's pretty low. Total's close to 50. So, yeah, I love Matt Ryan as a streamer in this matchup. Mike Davis, look. Philadelphia defense in the past has been very good against running backs. If you drafted Mike Davis, he's probably starting in your flex. I would start Antonio Brown over Mike Davis. I would start... trying to think the guys I talked about. Terry McLaurin, like James Robinson. Like, there's a lot of other guys that start over Mike Davis just because I want to see his role before I keep throwing him in my lineup. And I think as a pass catcher, he might favor more games where they're down. So we'll see. I don't know exactly what role Wayne Gallman's going to have. Be cautious about Davis. If you can easily afford to sit him, like if it's Myles Gaskin or Mike Davis, or if it's Mike Davis against like Antonio Brown or one of these other guys I like this week, I would sit him. Just kind of see what kind of role he's going to develop. If you can't afford to sit him, 100% understand. Start him and hope he's involved, or hope he's some sort of workhorse in this backfield. Because the only other back on the roster is Wayne Gallman, and he couldn't make the 49ers roster, so we'll see. Wide receivers for Atlanta, Julio Jones, Russell Gage. Not Julio Jones, I'm sorry. Calvin Ridley, Russell Gage. Calvin Ridley, this might be a nuclear game for him. I think this might be one of those games where Matt Ryan goes over 30 points and Calvin Ridley gets close to 30 points. He's going to get hyper-targeted. If Kyle Pitts needs time to integrate into the offense, I think this is a perfect time to use a guy like Calvin Ridley. So I do like Calvin Ridley a lot in this matchup. In DFS, I might try to stack him and Matt Ryan because I know Matt Ryan's a little bit on the cheaper side. Kyle Pitts, look, if you drafted him high, you probably don't have a backup that's worth starting over him. So unless you have Kyle Pitts and George Kittle or TJ Hockenson and Mark Andrews or one of those guys, you're starting Kyle Pitts, okay? Russell Gage, am I interested in him? Yeah, I mean, like, look, what I said is if Kyle Pitts needs time to integrate into this offense, then this would be the game where Russell Gage would get some sort of target share where he could be worth the start. I'm not confident in saying that. He doesn't have any sort of floor, but he is still the wide receiver 2 in this offense. So if you're desperate for a flex play this week, I do like Russell Gage. From the Philadelphia side, you got Jalen Hurts, who we still don't know how good of an actual quarterback he is. I'm pretty high on him from a fantasy football perspective, right? I do like him this matchup because Atlanta, they lost Keanu Neal. They lost, I believe they lost a couple other guys. I'm trying to think. Was that really it? They just lose Keanu Neal. They still have Grady Jarrett, still have Deion Jones, still have Foyce Oluokun. So, yeah, I mean, look, this defense was still pretty bad last year. Losing Keanu Neal definitely doesn't help. So I'm fine with Jalen Hurts in this matchup. This could be a blow-up matchup for Jalen Hurts. His running backs right now, Miles Sanders and Boston Scott / Kenny Gainwell. I don't know what kind of roles those guys are going to have, but Miles Sanders is expected to be the main early down back. So Miles Sanders, I'm okay with starting. I would label him a flex play just because Atlanta hasn't been the best against the run. Wide receivers, Devonte Smith. Do you want to start him in his regular season debut? That's a risky play. He's might be worth a flex, but at the same time, how involved is he going to be? What kind of target share is he going to get? These tight ends at the same time. Dallas Goddard, I'm okay with starting him. If you drafted him, he's probably your tight end 1, so I'm okay with that. Zach Ertz. Again, there's a lot of wait and see, and that's going to be the trend for week 1, right? A lot of wait and see who's good, what kind of role these people are going to have. So what's the split look like this year between Zach Ertz and Dallas Goddard? Does Dallas Goddard take that step up and be the number 1 weapon in this offense? Or is Zach Ertz still hanging on to that role? And if he's hanging on to that role, it's going to be by a thread. So to sum up, if you have Goddard, he's playable. Devonte Smith, if you can wait and see. If you can't, then throw him in your lineup. Houston and Jacksonville, one of the most entertaining games this week. Houston is at home. They are the Deshaun Watson-less owner's choice to be Deshaun Watson-less Houston Texans. Tyrod Taylor is going to get the start in this game. Is Tyrod Taylor a streamer this week? If you're desperate, then okay. I mean, Jacksonville literally traded away their best linebacker, and that defensive line is still a piece of work. That secondary has a ton of holes in it. This is not a good defense at all. They got the number 1 pick in the NFL last year for a reason. So, Tyrod Taylor, if you need to, you can stream him. Running back group, just stay away. I mean, if there's a game to start Phillip Lindsay, it might be this one. But who knows exactly how much work he's going to get, if David Johnson's still going to be involved. Mark Ingram, is he going to be involved? So, avoid this Houston backfield, and hopefully we get some clarity this week. Wide receiver-wise, Brandon Cooks. He is the wide receiver 1 in Houston. Will he be traded? Who knows? But he's about the only besides desperately streaming a guy like Tyrod Taylor, Brandon Cooks might be the only other player I feel comfortable enough putting in my flex spot this week. So, I don't feel great about it, but there's not going to be a lot of situations where I'm starting Houston players. Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence making his regular season debut. Thank God he's got a cake of a matchup. Bradley Roby was just traded from the Houston Texans, so there's literally nobody on that defense. No J.J. Watt, no Jadeveon Clowney, as we've known for years now. I think Whitney Merciless is still there, but, for the most part, this Houston defense is a shell of its old self. So, yeah, I mean, look, Trevor Lawrence is okay. I think he's startable. I do want to see what he does. James Robinson, I think, is a great start this week. Duke Johnson, I believe, is on the practice squad. And other than that, there's just Carlos Hyde. So I think James Robinson is going to get his fair share on the ground. Wide receivers, you have Marvin Jones coming off injury. You have DJ Chark coming off injury. I think this really opens the door for LaVisca to have a huge game. He's going to be one of my starts this week. I'm okay with DJ Chark, and I'm okay with Marvin Jones as flex options. I don't know if one of those guys is going to go off, if neither, or whatever. But if I'm starting wide receiver, if I have all 3, I'm starting Visca. And then tight ends, we don't even really have to go over for Jacksonville. Okay. Remind me to bring water next time, guys. Okay, Detroit hosting San Francisco. San Francisco 7.5-point favorites. Oh, by the way, defenses. I don't feel comfortable in Atlanta or Philly. Jacksonville defense, maybe, if you're desperate. But again, Jacksonville's got a pretty crap defense, so it might not even be worth it. Detroit hosting San Francisco. You got Jared Goff, not starting him. Deandre Swift, he has been labeled a full go. He is coming off that groin injury. look, you drafted this guy to start him. Start him as your running back too. Start him as your flex. If he wasn't playing, I would say this is a great matchup for Jamal Williams, but I'm staying away from Jamal Williams. Swift is going to get a ton of passes in this game, so I'm going to roll with Swift. Wide receiver wise, look, there's not a wide receiver worth mentioning in Detroit, so don't even bother. Tight end, TJ Hawkinson, you drafted him to start him, no question. San Francisco, Jimmy Garoppolo, starting off the year, hopefully doesn't get hurt. If you need a streaming option, he's not a bad option, right? Because it's the Detroit Lions. Need I say more? I mean, I don't know exactly how many points he's going to put up, but he's got Brandon Ayuk. Hopefully, he's still nursing an injury. He's got Deebo Samuel. Hopefully, he's got George Kittle, and he's got all his running backs. So, if you need to, I don't hate Jimmy Garoppolo. Raheem Mostert. Look, I'm not a fan of Mostert. I'm not a fan of Sermon. This is a cakewalk of a matchup. 7.5 point favorites. If they really are going to give Raheem Mostert any work, it's going to be out of the gate. So I'm actually good with starting Raheem Mostert for week 1. I think he's a good week 1 start. Hopefully I don't eat my words for trusting in this San Francisco backfield for 1 week. So we'll see. Wide receivers, if Deebo or Ayuk are playing, if Ayuk is playing, he's probably a low-end wide receiver too for me, just because George Kittle's there. He's coming off injury. I'm not necessarily avoiding him because the matchup is great, but they may not need to pass a whole bunch, and they have other weapons there, and he's coming off injury. So unless you have to, I mean, as I mentioned before, if you can easily avoid the situation, sure. If you're deciding between him and 2 guys and you're really on the fence about it, go with the other guy. Deebo, I don't hate, but kind of a similar situation to Ayuk, to where they're not going to need to pass that much. They can just kind of ground and pound their way to a victory here, and George Kittle's there, so may not get the volume that you want. Tight end, look, you drafted George Kittle to start George Kittle. Plain and simple. 49ers defense, I think, the number 1 defense this week for me. Okay. Next up, you have Tennessee hosting Arizona. Tennessee here, actually 3-point favorites. A big total this week. I wonder if that's the highest. No, Cleveland and Kansas City is the highest, and we'll have to talk about that later. But Tennessee is 3-point favorites. We have Ryan Tannehill fresh off that COVID list. I do like Ryan Tannehill. I think he could have a great week this week. Arizona defense, they just lost Patrick Peterson this offseason. Still a lot of things that they have to figure out there. Is this a Derrick Henry game? Right? I think this is more of a Julio and Aj Brown type game, as you can see with the total. But still, you drafted Derrick Henry. You're not sitting Derrick Henry. It really just takes one long run for him, which is very possible in this Arizona depleted defense. Julio and A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown currently still dealing with a knee issue. He is expected to play as of right now. Julio also dealing with an injury. He's expected to play as well. So both these guys are going to be a start for me. Tight ends, I'm not considering Anthony Ferkser until I know his role. Although Arizona has been pretty awful against tight ends. Now, Arizona themselves, Kyler Murray, of course they're starting Kyler Murray. This Tennessee defense, they did add Bud Dupree. Harold Landry looked great last year. They have some linebackers. But that secondary is very, very young. I think this is going to be a huge blow-up game for DeAndre Hopkins. He's going to come out of the gate. And after this game, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, so DeAndre Hopkins is going to be the wide receiver 1 this year. That's really just how I feel about this game. So if you're doing DFS, this Kyler and DeAndre Hopkins stack can probably win you some money. He's going to school these rookie and young, this young secondary. He's going to have no problem taking advantage of. Running backs, James Conner, don't you dare. Chase Edmonds and PPR, I'm okay with it. I think this is going to be a back and forth game. It's going to be a close game, which means Chase Edmonds is going to be on the field more. He's going to get some passes over the middle. So yeah, I'm comfortable with Chase Edmonds and PPR. Wide receivers, I mentioned DeAndre Hopkins. Outside of that, I don't feel comfortable with any other pass catcher in this game. I don't feel comfortable with Christian Kirk without knowing his role, without AJ Green, Rondell Moore. I really just don't know what this wide receiver group is going to look like. So, defenses, no, I don't feel comfortable starting either of them. Buffalo and Pittsburgh. I expect this to be a little bit more of a defensive game, but it also has the upside of being a huge offensive game. Oddly enough, that makes no sense, but it's okay. We have Buffalo as 6.5-point favorites. Josh Allen, after his borderline MVP season last year, he came up just short to Aaron Rodgers. Well-deserved. But look, again, another guy you drafted to start. Josh Allen, you are starting. Running back group against Pittsburgh. They're one of the best defenses against running back in the entire NFL. I'm sitting Zach Moss. I'm sitting Devin Singletary. Not only do I want to see this backfield shake out, but I just don't feel comfortable with either of these guys in my lineups. Stephon Diggs, easy start. Cole Beasley, Emmanuel Sanders, and Gabriel Davis, I'm putting a hold on. I want to see who is number 2 here. If it's really Emmanuel Sanders, if Gabriel Davis can make a name for himself, will Cole Beasley even be on the field? Who knows? But I'm avoiding the Buffalo wide receivers not named Stephon Diggs. That point total is not over 50, so I'm going to err on the side of caution. Dawson Knox, not worth the start here. For Pittsburgh, Big Ben. No, I don't really feel comfortable with Big Ben. Najee Harris, obviously, you're going to start. They are going to be playing from behind, so this can be a 50 pass attempt game for Big Ben. Deontay Johnson, I obviously feel comfortable with. Chase Claypool, I don't hate. I think he's going to have optimal coverage on the outside, so I don't hate him. Juju Smith is kind of the odd man out for me. He's going to be playing in the slot. Probably. I mean, we still don't even know. I mean, all these... Deontay Johnson is an easy every week start, but Chase Claypool and Juju are both risky flex plays. I like the upside of Chase Claypool better. Eric Ebron / Pat Freeman with Buffalo was pretty bad against tight ends last year, but again, I don't know what this timeshare is going to look like for these guys, so I don't feel comfortable. Neither defense I'm starting this week. If I have Pittsburgh, this is one of the situations where I'm like, okay, I'm not starting the Pittsburgh defense this week. I'm going to bench them, throw someone, whoever I can in my IR, pick up a defense like Denver, or even over here, Carolina. So, Carolina Panthers hosting the New York Jets. Both Sam Darnold making his Carolina Panthers regular season debut, and Zack Wilson. This is going to be a good game to watch. So I'm actually really interested in this one. Do I want to start Sam Darnold? It's a great matchup, but absolutely not. If anybody knows how to stop Sam Darnold, it's going to be the Jets defense. Everybody knows how to stop Sam Darnold, but more so, I guess the better way to word that, if the Jets can stop any one quarterback, it's going to be Sam Darnold. Boom. Christian McCaffrey, auto start. DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson are both very startable. This is going to be Robbie Anderson's first game against the Jets, so it's going to be pretty big. I do expect Robbie to have a decent game. DJ Moore, I will start. I'm not looking at Dan Arnold or anything like that. As far as the Jets go, Zack Wilson, again, err on the side of caution if possible. If you're in a 2-quarterback or super flex, it may be unavoidable, so you may have to play Sam Darnold. But I think this Carolina Panthers defense is going to take a huge step up this year. They did draft... Who did they draft at 8th overall? I can't remember his name, but they drafted a corner, and he's been making plays in camp. They added Hassan Reddick, who has been one of my favorite IDP targets this offseason. Him next to Brian Burns and Derek Brown and the other young counterparts of this defense, I think are going to give Zack Wilson a fair introduction into the NFL. So I'm staying away from starting Zack Wilson. I'm not starting Michael Carter. I'm not starting Tevin Coleman, even though he has been labeled the starter. I'm not starting Ty Johnson and Michael Carter. Wide receivers, Corey Davis is an easy start for me this week. We have Jameson Crowder, who we still don't know 100% if he's going to play. If he's out, this could open the door for Elijah Moore early. Regardless, the only wide receiver I want to start week 1 is Corey Davis. I don't feel comfortable with Elijah Moore. He didn't get to play all preseason coming off injuries. Jameson Crowder, even if he does play, I don't think he's going to get many touches. Yeah. And then Tyler Kroft at tight end. Look, I mean, if you're desperate, sure. I don't know his price on DraftKings, but if it's cheap, I might have to take a shot on him in a few lineups. But yeah, don't put your expectations high. I like the Carolina defense this week. We got some more games here. We got Indianapolis Colts hosting the Seattle Seahawks. As of right now, Carson Wentz is a full go. He will be starting week 1. I believe that actually just came out today. I'm recording this on a Wednesday. Running back wise, Jonathan Taylor. I'm starting Jonathan Taylor. You drafted him to start him, right? Nyheim Hines, I think this is going to be more of a back and forth game. So I don't necessarily think this is a Nyheim Hines game. I think it's more of a Jonathan Taylor game. So I'm going to stay away from Hines in this one. T.Y. Hilton is out, and we still don't know if it's going to be Zach Pascal or Paris Campbell starting in the slot. Who's going to be starting the outside? Nobody knows. But Michael Pittman, I would call him a decent flex option. Seattle was not very good at all against wide receivers last year. Next we have the tight end group, which is still way up in the air. I am avoiding Seattle. Russell Wilson, look, hopefully he's cooking, right? This Indianapolis defense has gotten way better over the last year. They're not like they used to be. You can't just run all over them anymore. So, but you know, you drafted Russell Wilson to start him. He's still a good start. Chris Carson, auto start. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, both auto starts. Gerald Everett, I'm going to err on the side of caution. Again, we do not know his role. Guys, my throat is on fire right now. Absolute fire. But I don't want to stop the video. Whew! Man. I'm sorry, guys. I had to take a quick break. My throat was just not having it. So now that I'm not choking on air, we can continue. So we just went over Indianapolis and Seattle. I don't feel comfortable with either defense starting this week. Talking about not being comfortable with defenses, let's talk about Cincinnati and Minnesota. We have a 47.5 point total. Minnesota 3-point favorites. Oh, and I don't think we went over Seattle and Indianapolis favorites. So 50 point total and Seattle 2-point favorites is not bad. You guys watch The Office? Bengals. So Joe Burrow making his regular season debut for the first time since tearing his ACL last year. Yeah, look, if you can avoid starting him, I would. I like Kirk Cousins better in this matchup. Running back wise, Joe Mixon. Look, he's a workhorse. You drafted him to start him. Start him. You know. Minnesota's secondary and defensive line is not as scary as it has been in the past, so I'm comfortable starting Joe Mixon without any issues. Wide receivers, look, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, I think they're both great starts this week. Jamar Chase, I don't know. I'm going to err on the side of caution with Jamar Chase. I think I'm going to sit him this week. I don't know what kind of role he's going to have. He's had some issues with drops and stuff lately, so I want to see who Jamar Chase is before I'm fully ready to throw in my lineup. Tight end wise, there's not really, CJ Uzama, but that's not really worth looking into right now. Kirk Cousins, I think he's a fantastic streamer this week, fantastic start this week. Dalvin Cook, need I say more? The Cincinnati defense is still awful, so Dalvin Cook's going to run all over them. Irv Smith is gone. Justin Jefferson's coming off an injury. Apparently, Adam Thielen also has some sort of injury, but I do love both Justin Jefferson and I like Adam Thielen for week 1, but they're both auto starts for me. Chris Herndon, Tyler Conklin. I don't view either of these guys as values right now. The tight end position wasn't a must use for this offense, so it's just going to be a jumbled mess between these two for the whole year. So Thielen and Jefferson, both great starts this week. Do I feel comfortable with the Minnesota defense? No. If this was like Indianapolis against Cincinnati, I'd probably feel comfortable with Indianapolis defense. But I do think Joe Burrow, we have to give him a little more respect as a player. Moving on here. New Orleans hosting Green Bay. And when I say hosting, I mean they're playing in Jacksonville because, unfortunately, due to, I believe it was Hurricane Ida, they may not be able to play in the new Caesars Superdome for a little bit. So they're going to be playing in Jacksonville for the time being. Green Bay, 4-point favorites, 50-point total. As far as the New Orleans side, I do not feel comfortable starting Jameis Winston off the bat. We saw good Jameis Winston in preseason, but I want to see good Jameis Winston in regular season. Is he gonna? They're gonna get Zadarius Smith down his throat. He's gonna have Rashad Gary coming at him. I just don't feel comfortable with him throwing downfield. Alvin Kamara. I mean, Green Bay has let up some pretty huge games to running backs, so I think Kamara has got a shot at being the running back 1 overall this week, if not for CMC and Dalvin Cook. Marquez Callaway, do I feel comfortable with him? Not really. I mean, it's one of those wait and see type things, and I think if he's going to be lining up at the outside, he might be going against Jair Alexander, who was the definition of a shutdown corner last year. So that piled with Jameis Winston's first game, I'm going to avoid Marquez Callaway if I can. I think there's going to be better matchups down the road. There's going to be better opportunities to use him. And I want to see him in action first in regular season and how much he's actually used. So, avoiding Marquez Callaway. Also avoiding Traquan Smith or whatever other wide receivers there are. Adam Troutman, avoiding. I still want to see what kind of a role he has. I think he's going to split it with Juwan Johnson, who seemed to be the pass-catching tight end for this group. So, we'll see. Green Bay. Expect to be up in this game. Aaron Rodgers, I'm definitely fine with playing Rodgers. You know, you drafted him for a reason. Aaron Jones, not a great matchup, but he'll make up for it with pass catching, so Aaron Jones will be just fine. Devonta Adams, you don't need me to say anything here. No other Green Bay wide receiver I'm really looking at here. New Orleans has been pretty bad against tight ends. Robert Tonyan is a week-to-week. He could do something, he could do nothing. So it's a 50-point total, so I don't hate Robert Tonyan here. I wouldn't call him a start, but he's not someone I'm completely avoiding. Green Bay defense, I don't hate it, but I would put him, middle of the list, lower end of the list here. All right, we got a couple more games here. We got New York Giants hosting the Denver Broncos. Even with Teddy B starting, the Denver Broncos are 3-point favorites, 41.5 point total. That is pretty bad. For the Giants, I mean, do I feel comfortable starting Daniel Jones? Absolutely not. Kenny Galladay's banged up. Saquon Barkley might not have his whole role. Evan Ingram's not going to be out there most likely, so I do not feel comfortable at all starting Daniel Jones. Saquon Barkley, if I drafted him in the first round, I'm starting him, but my expectations are going to be lowered, right? So I think he can still be fine. He can still get 60% of the snaps, rack up a ton of catches, and get you through the day. Obviously, his ceiling is having a huge game per usual. But, at the same time, if you can be cautious, be cautious. By cautious, I mean if you're in an 8-team league and it's between starting Saquon Barkley or Austin Eckler, start Austin Eckler. It's just, he's still a top 10 running back. And for you to sit a top 10 running back is just not easy to do. So, if you can, be cautious with Saquon. Denver has been pretty stagnant against running backs and less of a role. Not good. But you likely can't afford to sit someone like Saquon. Wide receivers, look, I mentioned Kenny Galladay's banged up. If he's playing, I'll probably end up starting him, but I'm not going to like it. Sterling Shepard, I think this is a sneaky, desperate start, right? I mentioned Kenny Galladay banged up, Evan Ingram not in the game. They're going to be down most likely. So, yeah, I think Sterling Shepard can rack up some catches and give you 10 plus points. I wish he was a lot cheaper in DraftKings. I think he's around 5,000 this week. If he was a lot cheaper, he'd be an auto play. But for me, at his current price of that, I'm probably not going to play him. But fantasy-wise, he's a passable flex for PPR. I think he's a desperate start in PPR. I mentioned Evan Ingram likely not playing in this game. And Caden Smith also not feeling well due to injuries. So Kyle Rudolph might be the only tight end on the roster here with other injuries. Is he worth it? Still probably not, but I don't view him as a sleeper or anything. Teddy B and the Broncos. Do I feel comfortable starting Teddy B? I don't see him as a streamer. The Giants defense actually looked pretty decent at the end of last year. And by pretty decent, I mean, they were making plays and getting forced fumbles, and Julius Peppers and Logan Ryan really stepped it up in the end of the year. So I'm not buying into starting Teddy B. Am I starting Melvin Gordon? Again, the Giants were sneaky good against running backs last year. So I'm going to avoid Melvin Gordon if possible, especially because they had just talked up Javonte Williams prior to week 1 about how they're not going to limit his role when he could really play at any time. So going to avoid Melvin Gordon. I'm also going to avoid this backfield for week 1. Again, I want to see how it works out. Wide receivers, Cortland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy. So Teddy B, from what I saw, he has pretty good connection with Jerry Jeudy. Or at least he established pretty good chemistry throughout the offseason. So I would feel much more comfortable starting Jerry Jeudy. Cortland Sutton, probably a desperate type flex. Noah Fant, another guy dealing with an injury. Don't really have a strong opinion on him, but if you drafted him, he's probably your starter, so you don't really have much of a choice. Worst case, if it's a low point total, right, probably just tiebreaker to just stay away from that one. On the opposing side, if you have a high point total, like this 54.5 point total here for the Chiefs in Kansas City, for Kansas City and Cleveland, this is a game you want to target all these players. So Pat Mahomes, I think this could be, he's the quarterback one. You're starting him. I don't even need to go into that. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Look, another guy you drafted, you're starting him. I don't want to get too much into nitty-gritty. You're starting Tyreek Hill. I'm not comfortable with any of these other wide receivers. No Demarcus Robinson or McCole Hardman or anyone like that until we know what the roles are going to be. Hardman, he really just needs one good throw, and he could be worth something that week. So I don't hate Hardman, but again, I'm not going to rely on him. I'm not going to label him as a start. I'm going to label him as what he is, which is a boom or bust. Travis Kelce, I don't need to talk about. Also, Denver defense. I do like Denver defense. Putting it out there. Cleveland Browns. This is a matchup where I think Baker is going to be a great start. In games where he actually needed to throw it last year, I mean, Baker had 1 or 2 games with like 4 touchdowns and like a 200-300 yards. So I think this is going to be a pretty decent big week 1 for Baker. Nick Chubb can also get his. Kareem Hunt also going to get his. Do I trust Odell? Do I trust Jarvis? Not really. I mean, I think these are both startable matchups for each of these guys, right? I think if you're going to get one startable matchup, it's going to be this one. They're down 6.5 points, so they're going to need to throw it. It's a high-scoring game. I'm okay with it. I don't hate Austin Hooper either if you need a tight end option, because usually when Baker does need to throw it, other guys like Austin Hooper are going to benefit. So I don't hate Austin Hooper at all in this matchup. Don't feel comfortable with either defense. This is going to be a high-scoring game. Miami going into New England. This is Tua versus Mac Jones. The matchup everybody has been wanting to see. Kind of a low total here, 43.5. I don't feel comfortable with Mac Jones making his debut. That Miami defense is sneaky good. They have Xavier Howard. They have some playmakers across the defensive line and the linebacker group. So I'm going to be avoiding Mac Jones in this game. Patriots are favorites. I think Damien Harris can have a pretty decent game. I think I'm expecting him to see about 15, 20 touches. Reminder, Stevenson also just dislocated his thumb. So it's going to be Damien Harris and James White, especially with Sony Michel not there. So Damien Harris, I think, is going to be a fine start this week. James White, not so much of a James White week. If they're going up against a better team and they need to check the ball down, I would say James White would be good. But for this week, it's going to be Damien Harris. Do I feel comfortable with Jacoby Myers starting? A desperate flex option is what I would call him, because the ball has to go somewhere. And I really don't know where else it's going to go besides the tight ends. So, yeah, I mean, look, Jacoby Myers, I think this is a startable game for him as a flex play. I'm not interested in Nelson Aguilar or any of these other pass catchers. N'Keal Harry is out, as we know. Tight ends, you got Hunter Henry, you got Jonnu Smith. Henry's coming off injury. Jonnu has been practicing and playing. So if I have to pick between the two, I'm going to pick Jonnu. I think he's going to be a value play this week. So I do like Jonnu Smith this week against Miami. For Miami, Tua, do I feel comfortable starting him? Absolutely not. I do not. There's no Stephon Gilmore, but other than that, this Patriots defense is full force. So let me do some Tua or scenarios. So Tua or Jimmy Garoppolo, I might still lean Tua because I don't think Jimmy G is going to need to do all that much. Tua or Baker, it's going to be Baker. James Winston or Tua, it's probably going to be Winston. Joe Burrow or Tua, it's going to be Burrow. Kirk or Tua, it's going to be Kirk. Carson Wentz or Tua, probably Tua. Those are some of the guys who I would think people would have to decide between Tua or someone else. So Myles Gaskin, I'm 100% starting him. Report came out recently that they're expecting him to carry the full load, which, if true, could be huge. If not true, then, it's whatever. But I think in PPR, in a game like this, where they're going to be down by a little bit, I do think that Myles Gaskin is definitely startable. You drafted him to start him. So, wide receiver-wise, this is going to be a sneaky good week one for a guy like Devontae Parker. He's had success against the Patriots in the past. Will Fuller is suspended for this game. This is Jalen Waddle's first regular season NFL game. There is no Stephon Gilmore in this game. If there's ever a time to start Devontae Parker, it's got to be this week. It's got to be this week. He could put up nothing, but I am labeling him as a desperate start. Tight end, at the same time, I think this could be a great week for a guy like Mike Gesicki. There aren't really too many other places to go with the ball. They might be down. Gesicki has had success against the Patriots in the past. So, okay. I do like the Patriots defense, and the Miami defense is a little sneaky, but I'm going to lean for the Patriots defense here. We got the LA Rams and Matt Stafford blowing out Andy Dalton and the Chicago Bears. The Rams are 7.5-point favorites, 46-point total. Do I like Matt Stafford in this game? Yeah. Why not? Right? You drafted him to start him. Running back wise, if you can be cautious with this Darrell Henderson and Sony Michel duo. This is not a good matchup for Sony. This is not a good matchup for Henderson. So I would avoid if possible. Wide receivers, I'm 100% starting Cooper Kupp, 100% starting Robert Woods. Those are weekly auto starts. Tyler Higbee, week-to-week upside. This may not be a game where they have to pass all that much. It might be a balance of the two, so I'm not a huge fan of Tyler Higbee here. As for Chicago, Andy Dalton is going to get the start here. He's going to get blown out by the Rams. He's going to get tackled. He's going to throw interceptions, but they're going to need to pass the ball a ton, so I can see him getting a touchdown or two. That doesn't mean I'm starting him, because I'm not. Running back-wise, David Montgomery, if they hope to continue involving him as a pass catcher, then I think he's fine in this game. But again, you drafted him in the 4th round. You are starting David Montgomery. Allen Robinson, he's going to be lining up against Jalen Ramsey. Or it might be Darnell Mooney. This is the matchup that everybody's wanted, right? Darnell Mooney against Jalen. Look, I'm starting Allen Robinson because he's an auto start, but I'm not starting Darnell Mooney in this matchup against Jalen Ramsey. I don't care the memes. I don't care about the rivalry between the two, or how much Mooney brags about it. If anything, it just makes Jalen Ramsey want to go after Mooney more and leaves Allen Robinson alone. So I'm comfortable with that. The tight ends, I'm not looking to start Jimmy Graham or Cole Kmet in this one. Rams defense, I'm definitely all over the Rams defense this week. Las Vegas Raiders are hosting the Baltimore Ravens. Derek Carr against the Ravens, no thank you. 50-point total. Surprised. It might just be mostly Baltimore, but that's okay. This is not a Josh Jacobs game. Okay? This is not a Josh Jacobs game. I am not starting Josh Jacobs. I would avoid him if possible. It's going to be hard to flat out sit him, considering where you drafted him, which is hopefully the 5th round. But I'm avoiding Josh Jacobs. Doesn't mean I'm starting Kenyon Drake, even though I think he might be more of the guy this week. But I just don't feel comfortable. What else we got? We got wide receivers. We got Hunter Renfrow. We got Henry Ruggs. And we got Bryan Edwards. I'm confidently not starting any of those guys. Not a great matchup at all. The only one you're starting from this Las Vegas team is Darren Waller. Baltimore side. This is going to be a great game for Lamar Jackson. He could be the quarterback one this week. Running back wise, Le'Veon Bell. He's still in the practice squad. Doesn't look like he's going to make it up to the starting roster for the first game. So, Gus Edwards is a full go. I like Gus Edwards in week 1. Sammy Watkins, right? Sammy Watkins and his week 1 debacles. Look, he's found himself in another situation where he has an easy matchup. There's no Rashad Bateman. Marquis Brown has been hurt. So there's a chance Sammy Watkins does his week 1 thing. To me, it's nothing more than a meme. It is not a concrete. It is not law. Before this week, we thought Matt Ryan every other year was going to be a quarterback 5. So do not think that Sammy Watkins is going to go off. Could he? If he is, this is probably going to be it. But I'm not starting Sammy Watkins. He is a very desperate option if you have ran out of flex options. Even then, I would start Sterling Shepard over him. But Marquis Brown himself, I think this is a great game for Marquis Brown. Great game for a guy like Mark Andrews. And like I said, I think Lamar's just going to have a fun time here. So I think that's going to do it. I do like the Baltimore defense to a point. I'm not crazy about them, given the high point total. But I do like Baltimore defense also. So that's going to do it for week 1. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. If you want to hear back for week 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 for this year, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I'll be here all year. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.